Hey, welcome back, everybody. HSC Podcast 21. Got Big Box Steve on the mic, co-host Derek, the Big Smooth. So this week, we're going to be all over the place with some topics. But, what's going on in the news right now, obviously, is, it's everywhere, social media. It's just one of those things that you're still seeing both sides of it, which how can you see both sides of this, so interesting. We're talking about the shooting down in the school in Texas. So this was, at this point, it was like 2 days ago, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was.
They're kind of snapped because it was on Wednesday. It was on Tuesday.
Yeah, my anniversary.
Right. Well, that sucks. But then, so now you have some aftermath of it too, right? You're seeing a lot of the stuff come out in the media about like the way the day went, how the officers were reacting, how the parents were reacting. You've got a lot of critiquing going on of that, so a lot to unpack with this one. I mean, there's so many different topics when you talk about this, but just in general, I've seen a list of, have you seen that list of
the school
involved shootings? Yeah. I don't remember how far back that went, but just the fact that it's that big.
Well, the first was Oregon's own Kip Kinkle.
Right.
I think it was 1998 is when it first started. So since 1998 that has happened, and it's just been growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, and that's a very big list. So number one, I mean, that's the first issue, right? Why do we have a huge list of school shootings? Like, what's going on here?
Well, it's like this one hits a lot because this one in Sandy Hook, it was elementary school kids. I don't want to say I can see the other ones, but they were high school or college. So you could see there's be more personal. Most of them, those are more personal attacks. Like this one in Sandy Hook, it was just an older kid, an 18-year-old going to an elementary school.
So you're saying with some of the high school, maybe in particular, you have a lot of this tension that may be building up versus maybe the people were bullied or they felt bullied or they felt like outcasts or,
Right.
Those personalized relationships they have with people at the school cause them to go back to that particular school and do that. Where, did this kid even go to middle school there before? Because he was in high school, right, or getting ready to graduate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, this is grade school though, so it's not even middle school.
I mean, right. Yeah. Or yeah, grade school. Yeah, and it's not like grade schoolers are going in there doing that kind of stuff, right? It's always somebody a little bit older.
Right.
So there's really no like personal tie there, is what you're saying. And because that's an interesting thought process, because now you're talking about maybe even is the quality of school or just the environment that they're in, could that be causing unnecessary tension, right? Unnecessary mental health problems for high schoolers. So is that an issue, right?
Yeah, and then the other correlation, it might be, no, I don't know. I won't go into it because I don't know for sure. So I don't want to make any, because I don't know for sure about Sandy Hook. But like for this one, he was living with his grandmother. So what does that make his home life?
Right. What are the reasonings behind that? Like I don't know. I mean, it may be out there, but I haven't read anything about that. But yeah, that's interesting thought process is like, why is he not living with his parents? What happened? What kind of trauma did that create? And so outside of that, I see a lot of this, and I really think that, this is obviously a mental health issue, not just for this particular person, but for anybody doing these types of acts. And I just think it's a interesting argument when people are like saying, hey, let's, we need to get rid of guns. Guns are the problem. but how big a problem is the mental health side of that?
Yeah, see, this is a difficult one for me too, because obviously it's like, how did he get a hold of these guns? But at the same time, I feel I'm not a gun person. I've never even shot a gun, so I don't even know. So I'm not one of that's like pro guns or whatever, but I just feel like it's more about mental health and family, what's going on in the household, in the family household. Um, the other thing is I'm not know when they did it, and I know why they did it. But you know, we don't really have a place for mentally ill people anymore.
Yeah.
They basically they go to the ER or something, they get evaluated, and they're back out. There's no place to put anyone for long periods of time. Like there's no psych wards or anything like that anymore. And I get why, because back in the day they were heavily abusive and they didn't really work very well. It was more like a prison.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like we need to get back to getting something like that again, but more regulated and actually helping people instead of just saying, oh, okay, you're good, you can go home now, here's some Prozac.
Yeah, and that was outside of the way the mental hospital, psych wards, whatever you want to call them, worked. Through the 80s, through the 90s, through the 2000s, it really wasn't a place for people to go recover and get better. It was really just a place to put them, give them a lot of these prescription drugs that big pharma is making tons of money off of, and through all these places all across the United States. And it's really just keeping them there. It's not really helping anybody get any better. And so if you're talking about that type of thing, there's a lot of evaluation that has to be done there, because it's outside of some of the physical types of abuse that those patients go through, but just the drain on their body from all the different medications that they're being given. And then that isolation and the way that affects your brain function and your personality, everything. What happens when they get out? I mean, they're not going to be any better. So you're talking about something like that. That's a mass overhaul. And you almost have to look at it where it can't be that type of thing. It needs to be more like some of those high-end alcohol recovery things. You've seen those where they kind of, they're out and down in this nice place in California, and they're out in the weather and, interacting and doing things like that, because you can't just expect to pump a bunch of these medications down these people's mouth and for them to get better. So when you talk about not being a gun supporter or even a gun owner or anything like that, are you pro then more gun regulation? If that type of thing comes across your desk, are you signing off on that?
I don't know. I'm right. For me, I don't really, it doesn't really matter if I do or not, but I just don't think it's that. I don't think the issue really is guns. I think it's the nice scapegoat. It's the good piece to say it's all because the guns. No, it's because the person. And we got to figure that out first. Sure, I don't care. I mean, do we really need all these semi-automatic, gun, all these things? And I'm going to protect myself. No, I don't think you need all those.
Right.
So I'd be fine signing off on them, because I don't think you need like guns that have so much ammo on them. If a robber comes into your house, you're not going to have to shoot him 20 times.
Right. Well, and so here's an issue with guns in general, right? So let's say you try to regulate the semi-automatics, the guns that we don't need, right? Overkill guns. And then we try to keep it to what are you going to have then, like say hunting rifles or, pistols or things like that. If someone's going to go and do a mass shooting with a semi-automatic, they're going to go do it with a rifle, a hunting rifle or a pistol. I mean, you take all guns away and there's not a gun at all, that mentally ill person may take a baseball bat into an elementary school.
Well, wasn't it in China, the guy killed a bunch of people with a knife.
Right. Or a knife, or, I mean, anything could be a knife, right? You could break a window and run around with a big piece of glass. I mean,
but I feel like with a hunting rifle, or, you're not going to get off and kill 20 people with that.
well, yeah, now you're just talking about minimizing deaths of these mass shootings versus, doing something about it. Because it's like, oh, well, at least we only lost 3 instead of 10. Like, who cares, right? You still lost 3, I mean, so if that's like the lesser of 2 evils to look at, like, we're looking at it the wrong way. We should be looking at it.
Well,
how do we
what we need to be
it?
looking at, really, and I hate to go pile on police officers, but they waited 45 minutes before they went in.
Yeah, so that's a big one right now, right? So this is everywhere today, especially like today, it's blown up quite a bit about the length of time they were there, and also, what do you think about them restraining parents from going in?
Oh, I would have been pissed. If you're not going to go in, then I'm going to go in. I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't restrain, you go in. You restraining people, you need to get your butt in that school and save those kids.
Yeah, I mean, they're arresting people, they're macing people, they're tasing people to keep them out.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so
you're spending more time keeping people out than actually going and getting someone who's murdering a bunch of people.
Right. So and then I guess what is the police side for doing what they did, right? So yeah, they said they didn't go in for 40 minutes. By the time they were there and mobilized, so this guy had already killed the bulk, right? So he was locked himself in a room for a while after that. So he goes in there, he does his shooting, and he goes and like barricades himself. So if it's pre-barricade, then yeah, you guys need to get in there as fast as possible. He's still shooting. But if he's already barricaded himself in a place where he can't kill anybody else, now don't you think about minimizing risk of getting to him?
Well, my wife's a teacher, and she's gone through all this, and they've spoken with the police officers in that area, and they've actually have it where they're going to get there in 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, getting there quickly is
and it's 5 minutes. And their whole policy is we get there and we go in.
Yeah.
So how do they know that he's barricaded himself and he's not shooting any more people?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like everything's reporting is on the officers outside. There were still people inside. It didn't take them all of them. There were other people scouting, trying to get in, trying to figure out what was going on inside the building. The bulk of the officers that are getting the real bad media press right now were the ones securing the perimeter. And so there's more people involved than just those guys standing out there keeping people from going in.
Right.
So this is a hard one for reporting too. It's like you've seen so much stuff. I don't know how many times I've seen something that's been different than what was reported an hour before or an hour after or something like that. So that is a hard one, but it's the police job. I mean, so regardless, you should be going in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, why are you a police officer?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. Who knows the logistics? Because it's a very small town, so I don't know how far away, how fast they got there. So
right,
but still, you got enough police officers to do crowd control. You got enough to go in there.
Yeah. No, and it's that, like I said, I don't know all the circumstances, but yeah, if you're there and if I'm there, and I don't care if I'm not a police officer, again, if this is happening at my child's school, like I am going in. I mean, maybe I'm going to get shot. Maybe that's fine. Right. I'd rather take that chance than let my child get shot.
Exactly.
So that was a tough one. But now you're seeing like different things come up where like a police officer went in there and grabbed their own kid and got out, and things like that. And so you're just seeing all these and you don't know how true they are, right? And that's the problem with
you have to wait. You have to wait to sort everything out. Like the whole other thing is that the police were chasing him, but and then now the police are saying no, that wasn't true, and they didn't chase him there, or so.
Right, but he did have like a car accident right near the school where he drove off the road or something, and then got out, and people were trying to help him. I guess then he pulled his gun. So I imagine the police were there pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like it'd be hard to imagine that they weren't there within a few minutes in a smaller town. So that seems to be an issue, and that's definitely one of the big issues there. So police are getting hit hard right now. That's tough. Still, I mean, it's really hard for me when they talk about, the guns guns are what's causing the problem, because again, I don't know that I believe that as much as I do also the mental health side. So it's interesting how this is going to play out, because it's really a big political point to like removing and not removing guns, or making even, harsher laws, things like that, because you do have a big side of the country that's very pro-gun. And then you have the other side that's pushing for it not, and it's that's an interesting part of the whole thing, which I think it sucks that these type of incidents have to like bring different policies to light and bring these arguments up.
Well, and then I was listening to the radio, and Keyshawn Johnson was talking, and he was born in Southern California, and he's like, we could have just gone over to the corner market and I could have got a gun.
Right.
It's not, even if they're illegal, that people are going to find them.
Well, I think that's the problem with gun control laws. It's just like trying to control drugs,
Yeah.
What happens when you try to control drugs? People are like, go back to prohibition, right? You can go back to that and say, what's the first thing you did when you guys said no more alcohol, right? You got underground bars and prohibition, and people running alcohol. So they're going to do the same thing. Goes into drugs, goes into guns. Is there something to be said though about the difference between it being like trying to regulate it? So we'll say drugs, for example. Do you think it keeps some drugs off the street when you make it all illegal and you arrest people? Is there a percentage of that comes off the street? Like, would that be a percentage of the guns that did come off the street, or no?
Well, I think I could see like maybe making it harder for like 18 through, under to get guns. It just seems like, and also I don't know how you would do this because I have never gone through this process, but like should have like a psych eval and stuff like that too if you're under a certain age. I mean,
right. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting that you think about it, because you can't drink till you're 21, but as soon as you're 18, you're voting,
join the military,
you're buying guns, you're joining the military. Like that's an interesting thing to me too, because when I was reading about the shooting in Buffalo, so this was an 18-year-old kid also, right? And like he had literally just turned 18 and went out and bought this stuff. I mean, he had like body armor and a semi-automatic rifle. So, I mean, that's kind of weird to me. Like at first I thought about it, I was like, oh, he's 18. But I was like, wait a minute, he's only 18. Like, how stupid we were when we were 18?
We were playing basketball at 2 a.m. in one of the roughest neighborhoods in the
right.
around.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just so many stupid things you did, when you're that young, and then you're like thinking about that we're selling body armor and semi-automatic guns to.
And then kids. It's like, who's selling this stuff, and why isn't anyone like thinking that's a red flag?
Right.
It's like, why does some 18-year-old need like a body armor and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I don't know how he bought it. Maybe he was maybe he didn't walk in and be like, hey, I need a full set of body armor and a gun and a bunch of ammo, maybe he bought one and bought the other. So I guess maybe then the question is could there be like a record of everything you buy at these places? And then maybe it does flag you if you buy too much.
I always thought there already was. I always thought like the FBI or whatever, like flagged people who bought certain things.
I mean, maybe they do. I mean, I haven't really dug into that because I'm not into guns personally either.
Right.
So, I don't dig into the laws too much. As far as like the tracking, right? As far as like if I buy a gun, who's going to know, and does it go on some type of record? So I'd have to dig more into that. But that is an interesting question. I wonder what kind of is, because doesn't that seem like a good way to figure out like we shouldn't sell this more to this person?
Right. You're like, why is this person got, we just flagged this person because they got all these guns now and they bought body armor. And they bought a bunker.
Have you seen some of these videos or pictures of people with, hundreds of guns? And I mean, I've seen a few things like people like laying out all their guns on their back patios and things like that. And it's like, why do you need that many guns? But at the same time, like they believe they need it or want it. And so now should we have laws that limit that, because we don't know what ultimately could happen to those 100 guns.
Right.
Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse, we could have an invasion. Who knows? Right.
Well, the only issue I have is because there's people like, so my dad has, probably 7 or 8 hunting rifles, I mean, and he's hunted his whole life, and that's how we got food when we were kids, half the time. Right. So it's like, I mean, if you start regulating too much, now you might get into that argument, and then people are gonna say, well, you don't need to hunt, but when that's regulated, that can actually be a very good returning resource,
Well, I don't know. Have you seen the price of meat at the store? I mean, you might need to start hunting and gathering, right?
Right. Well, yeah, the price of everything. They say eggs is going to go up another 30% over the next 6 months. So that's the next one. Like eggs didn't get hit really hard. They had inflation, but they weren't hit like meat for sure.
You can't freeze eggs really.
No. Well, and yeah. So you're not going to be stockpiling them. You're just going to go buy chickens, right?
Yeah.
Have some chickens in your backyard. So yeah, I mean, so that's the other issue, I guess. Now you're talking about pricing. So let's kind of move into that a little bit. Price of food's up. What I was spending on an $80 to $100 grocery trip per week has gone up to about $150.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, oh, it's a 10%, 15% increase, not for us, not for me, I mean, and I'm not shopping extravagantly. I'm buying the exact same things, and it's not crazy shopping. So I'm seeing that inflation as an average person, because you're seeing it in your food and your gas, right? Both are pretty highly inflated right now. And that's what a lot of our spending is on, right? A lot of our excess cash goes to, food, gas, entertainment. And those are all higher.
I mean, I know that's what I do, the grocery shopping, and I go to Winco, and it'd be like, $100, pretty much always $100.
Right.
Went the other day and I was like 150, and I didn't have any like meat either.
Oh man.
And I was like, how?
Yeah.
I'm like, what did I get that made it 150?
It's just everything's more expensive. Like every item, like it's.
Yeah, and I wasn't even buying like, frozen it was just run of the mill stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I was pretty shocked the other day about those two very similar situations, where one, I didn't have much meat and it was still $140, and the other where I did have some, but it was the same stuff I usually buy, it was still $140. It's like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, charge me $150. So there's one issue, and again, that hits the average American's pocket really, really big, right? And then gas prices going up, and so I want to talk about that a little bit, because they're saying there's a potential by August to be almost up to a $6 national average.
Jeez.
So that means
supposed to be going down.
Yeah, for us that means that's like $6.57. Yeah.
Glad I work from home now.
Right. Well, which is interesting is that so demand for gas was down last month or this month. Uh, it's down like 5%. Demand is right, and that's what they're saying is because the price has gotten so high, people are finding ways not to drive or just not driving, so they don't have to pay for gas, staying home more often, working from remotely when they can. So that it kind of goes hand in hand with then they say, well, we want to produce, or the government's pushing the oil producers to produce more oil, but they don't really want to if demand's going to continue to drop, because what's going to happen is then their price, is going to go down. They have to lower their price and make less money.
But we're not going to go and buy gas at
Right.
this price. And so that's the reason. It's like they need to lower their gas prices if they want people to buy lots of gas. Right now, we're just doing it out of necessity for going to work or going wherever. No one's taking trips or anything. This is like Memorial Day is coming up, but no one's going to be taking trips.
Right. Well, so the thought process, I suppose, is that if you charge more, less people can buy it and you still make the same amount of money. So that's why, your price that's why they're thinking that price will go so high. Another thing I thought was interesting. So Biden administration said they're going to release up to 1 million extra barrels out of the reserve, right? Daily to try to help lower gas prices. But if people still don't buy it, then that's not going to help. Right. But first of all, why do we have millions and millions of barrels of oil in reserve?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I know why, like they're prepared for the worst possible situation, but it just seems funny to me. You're like, oh, we're going to release 1 million barrels of oil per day.
I would be like, where is all this coming from? Because that would be like a place, if you want to hit us, would be to take out the
oil reserves. I just thought that's a lot, that's a huge number.
That is a huge, it's like, you can't even quantify how many is 1 million barrels. Right. You know what I mean? Like, how many trucks is that?
Yeah. How big's the tank if you put it all in one tank, and put a hose on it and took it out barrel by barrel? How big of a tank do you have to put it in?
Right.
And so I thought that was interesting, because then some of the analysts were saying, that's not going to help. It's still going to go up because demand is down and because price is up. The most interesting thing that I thought, though, when I was reading some of these articles, so tell me how you feel about this. Biden's complaining about the oil companies not using some of their claims, right? So they have to file for these claims to go to these wells and dig these wells or whatever and get the oil out, right? So he's saying lawmakers should hold them accountable to use those. So I'm talking in some kind of legal way. But you're like Mr. Green, dude. Now you're telling everybody to hold these guys accountable for not going and using these oil wells.
He still wants to be popular.
Yeah.
I always think of the movie Singles, where Campbell Scott's trying to get a mass transit thing going, and he keeps getting shot down. And the big question was people like their cars.
Yeah.
People want to drive. They want to take their own vehicles. And that's the problem with everything going green is people still want to drive. It's like, you make it harder for us to drive, but we're still going to want to drive at some point. Going to want to take trips.
Yeah. And there's a difference between like electric and mass transit, at least with electric cars, you do get a car, but the problem right now is with selection. Like, not everybody can get a Tesla or wants a Tesla, and then the other electric cars out there right now anyway just aren't that great, or what people want to drive.
Well, problem now is you can't get them anyway.
Right. Well, especially Teslas. That's a possible feat.
Well, you can't get anything right now. The we were looking at cars, and it was like a 300 person wait for a car. But it was first come, first serve. So like we were talking about Wilsonville, so like 45 minutes away. And they said basically they'll call you and then it's first come, first serve. So there was like no way we would ever get a car.
They want you like race to the dealership.
Yeah, and it would be like on a Thursday. It's like call it as a Thursday at 9:00 in the morning.
Right.
Oh yeah, we're going to be able to just get out of work and
come get the car.
And then, and when you buy a car, it's not like you just buy it. It takes like a few hours.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, sorry, I can't pick my son up at school because I got to go get this car right now.
Yeah, especially the process they love going through at the car dealerships. Yeah, they're just going to drag that out forever.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Yeah, so apparently though, there's a lot of production going into newer electric cars though. So a lot of big car companies, Ford, Chevy, I'm sure some of the foreign ones too, but they have a big push. I think it's by like 2025 is when the first big lines will be hitting of their new electrics, and then by like 2030, like it's going to be close to most of them being electric. So that is a change you're going to see regardless, into over time.
Like to see that Fast and the Furious movie. All electric cars.
Oh man, I love that. Did you see the meme with the Fast and Furious where it was they were on bicycles because gas prices were too high?
No.
Because Vin Diesel's wearing like one of the bicycle helmets, and it was just so funny.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah, it's great, So we were talking about, so yeah, this doesn't affect you, but gas prices are, and it does in some sense, but you're working from home, so remote, so that helps a little bit. But this is a big hot button for the US right now too, right? I mean, how do you think that affects like the political landscape? How do you win this war if you're in want to be president, or you are in president right now, of gas prices?
Well, yeah, and it's gas prices. It's all inflation all over the place. Because the problem is people were cooped up for so long, and now they want to get out, but now they can't even afford to get out.
Right.
It's like, oh, I want to go to the beach. Oh, I'm sorry, that's $300 just to go to the beach and back, just driving. And so yeah. And so I think it will. The problem, it will affect some people, because that's a huge platform. Be like, listen, under your time, inflation was hitting high numbers. Even if it isn't his fault, it's still going to be put on him.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is why I don't understand why they're moving so slowly as an administration on this, inflation and, just everything, gas prices and businesses closing, things like that. Like, these are going to be major points for the next election for the Republican Party to come in and really just hammer them. You think you'd want, even if it's not for your current administration, like do it for your future of your party,
right?
If that's what you really believe in, because have you gone to a restaurant? Go to a restaurant now, even not fast food as much as it's bad, but it's still up a little, but like just a basic restaurant, maybe not a chain, something here, and something you used to buy for $20 is now like 30.
Yeah.
I mean, we went, and had dinner at a place locally here. It's just a small, pub, got the dinner to go, picked it up, everything like that. And for 4 people it's $100. And that's a pickup from like pub food.
Right. Where you're not even being served or anything. Yeah. So it's just the food.
Just the food. Yeah. And that same meal pre-pandemic would have been, $60. So it's, maybe $70. But that's the thing. It's like, so you've got the problem with these small business restaurants closing, right? So this is something else that's hitting you guys, because they're going to look at that against your administration, against your party. So like, why are they not doing more to try to help these small businesses?
Yeah, well, and that's the big thing too. Is like, okay, so you're a restaurant and you survived COVID, sort of, because it's still going around, but
right,
you survived it, and then still then it's like, oh, I can't afford anything.
Right. Well, they have their price increases, right, from their suppliers. So I mean,
and then there's staff shortages.
Yeah. So, and not just that, now you have to pay people more too. Otherwise, one, they won't come back to work. And now it's kind of like the norm is those wages. And I know people don't see, they see it, but I see it everywhere. I mean, we've increased our wages of hiring people, even since the pandemic's over, I mean, we had to continue to increase even after the pandemic was, well, that's not over, but what everybody's calling over. We've even had to continue to increase our pays especially for like new employees. You see Target, you see Taco Bell, you see all those type of companies raising their wages. So wages are going up.
But the people that already work there, do they get their raises?
Well, yeah.
Wages were raised.
Well, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
No, it's like your cable company, right? If you want to have cable TV, cable internet, who gets the best price? The new customers,
For your phone.
For your phone, same thing. You've been with them for 20 years. Somebody can come in brand new and get a better deal than you.
Yeah.
It's funny that we treat that, that seniority, you
Loyalty,
seniority, couldn't work at seniority, and consumerism, it's loyalty. It's funny that we treat that way. And then it's allowed, and people like generally take it. I mean, I work for, cell phone companies, and there was some complainers, but for the most part, people were just like, oh, okay, that sucks. I'm like, so you want to just get your new phone then? Yeah. Okay. It's like, they just want to get screwed and get lost.
Well, just because people don't want the hassle, is like, oh, I got to switch to a different phone company. But the other thing too is like, what I see is like, you get to keep your phone number, so it's not that big a deal.
But yeah, no, it's not at all. And that was just because people are afraid of change, and getting the phones used to be a hard thing, but now that phones are all open, and a lot of them can be used on all different networks and things, that's not the issue anymore. So I think you're seeing a little bit of that switch in the cell phone industry for sure, where they're switching to where everybody can get the plan now. But that was a big issue. But cable companies still won't.
Well, cable companies don't even want you to get ours. Told us to get rid of cable.
Right.
They're like, we don't want to deal with cable anymore. We just want to deal with internet.
Yeah.
It's like, here, go off to this other streaming service that has cable on it.
Yeah, no, that's I don't know what the costs involved in running cable service are for them, but I know it's definitely not as profitable as running internet. Internet makes them a lot more money.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. Like my parents-in-law, older, but yeah, they switched to streaming because they like crunch the numbers. And my mom, they both switched to streaming because they're like, this is ridiculous. How much cable cost for what?
Right. Yeah, and it's really crazy because if you have good internet, there's so many streaming services, that for like $5, $9 a month, even if you add a couple of those, you could potentially miss like some like overall content, but you get to watch the stuff you like if you choose the right streaming services, So I think that's interesting. I would really like to know what percentage of people have actually gone to streaming. I feel like it's higher than they're let on.
Well, yeah, I think so. It's like we were ones that weren't going to do it, and then we just were like, him and Han, we thought about it for like 2 years. We were thinking, and then we're like, okay, well, let's just do it. And then it's like, nothing's different. We just don't pay as much now.
Right. Yeah, it's again, I wouldn't use cable even if I had it, so there's just no point for me. Everything that I want to watch is on certain places and I know where it's at, and I go watch it there. And half the time, some of that stuff's even free. So again, you don't have to pay for all of the different channels, that I want, because there are some free ones out there. So the topic switch over. I know this is not as sad as as the school shooting, but Ray Liotta passed away today. When I was talking about earlier, when I was talking about on set, he was filming a movie. He didn't like fall over on set, but he was filming a movie, and I actually thought Ray Liotta was a little older.
Yeah, only 67.
Yeah, so at 67, and there's some times, and I don't mean to sound like a dick or anything, but there's some people, when famous people pass away, like I just don't care that much. But uh, like when actors that I like or I think were good, or really represented themselves or Hollywood really well, sometimes that hits hard. And I think Ray Liotta for me was one of those.
Yeah, it was it kind of, and I know after everything with the school shooting, but yeah, when I saw that today, it kind of was like one of these where I just was like, man,
Yeah.
and it just kind of hit because I was like, man, and I just wanted to bring up, because people have been talking, reminiscent about movies, and I don't hear this one quite often, and it's just a supporting actor in it, but Copland.
Oh yeah,
Copland is a great movie,
that is a great movie.
and it goes with what's going on and nowadays too, like with the cop shooting someone, didn't know if they had a gun, and then everything with like corruption, and that was in 1997.
Right, they already knew, like it was the same.
Yeah. And he did a great job in that movie as the burned out cop who was kind of just there and just, but yeah, I always enjoy Ray Liotta. He had some very good roles, and that one is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I actually have never watched anything I didn't like him in. Which I loved him in Field of Dreams. I know that's a popular one, but I love how he encapsulates that older personality. Like somebody who could be from the 20s or the early time of that gangster, but not all just gangster. Yeah. Just like that's how people were. Back then it didn't have to be like the mafia style, like Goodfellas. But just if there was like just a dude walking around 1920s on the street, I'd imagine it'd be Ray Liotta.
Well, he was also at the HBO movie The Rat Pack. He was Sinatra.
Right. Yeah. I think it just fits him. I think that style of it fits him really well. But that's definitely sad to see. I thought he was older than that. And then to be filming a movie,
mm-hmm.
and then to die. That's another, because then it's like it's one more movie you don't get out of them. And I know it's like it's not world shattering, but movies are a powerful part of people's lives. People like entertainment, and a lot of movies move people or inspire them, or they some people develop sometimes probably an unhealthy love for movies.
Yeah, not many actors get to go and retire. Not like Sean Connery or Gene Hackman. Most people continue acting until they.
Yeah,
but
it does seem like there's been a few. I mean, I guess they probably go at the same. The numbers probably aren't really different, but it does seem like lately there's been more and more, and maybe that's just because there are more and more people that we watched, and they're getting older. So the movies we used to watch now, those actresses are getting older.
All right.
And so that's probably hitting a little harder than some of the ones 20 years ago.
All right.
I think the Bruce Willis situation, have you seen that? Like he's got that developing.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for him, it was another. It's like, man, I just wanted one more good movie, because he's been doing a bunch of B movies and stuff, and it was just like, I just would have liked one more blockbuster movie from him.
Right. Yeah, and that's a sad, because I always thought he was so good. Outside of the diehards, I don't know if you've ever seen God, now I can't remember the name of it. The one where he plays the cat thief.
Hudson Hawk.
That's right. Because I was just thinking about that when I was thinking about the other day. I was like, and it's such a weird, cheesy type movie, but I just love Bruce Willis.
I love that movie, but that's like one of the biggest bombs ever. But
I know.
I love that movie. I've seen it so many times.
Right. And it's roles like that really made me, enjoy Bruce Willis more. It's just as much as him being in a Die Hard or, Armageddon and things like
Blind
that.
Date.
Oh yeah. I mean, even when he's on TV, moonlighting, watch that all the time, things like that. So that was a sad one. That's a sad one to see too. Him, I'd like to have seen him in another movie too. So kind of continuing on this, new subject. So NBA playoffs, Dallas gets eliminated today. So you kind of called that before with the Warriors. So how are the Warriors playing so well right now? How'd they beat Dallas?
I just feel like Phoenix choked away. I don't think that Dallas was that great of a team.
Yeah.
They had Luka, and the Suns just kind of shat the bed, and Golden State has just way too many weapons now. Clay is starting to start to play well. You have Poole, you have Looney played out of his mind in that series. Just Curry, Green, they are stacked. Wiggins,
yeah. I saw older something about from maybe it was a year ago or less, but one of these sportscasters was talking about how Wiggins wasn't worth his contract, and it's a big waste of money. But you look at Wiggins is playing really well right now. So Jordan Poole and Wiggins, I think, are really bringing that team up to a point where it makes them really hard to beat. Green, Thompson, Curry, you kind of expect good play out of them.
Well, and that's the thing is you've seen it. It's Looney, Poole, and Wiggins. The youngsters have actually, Curry won the Western Conference MVP, but Looney and Poole, he could have said they should have won too.
Yeah, they've been both playing really well. All three of them, and you're right. I think that says a lot about that team for longevity too, if they can keep all those guys.
Well, and that's the cool thing. This is why I don't get people that hate Golden State. That's like, why hate them? They drafted everyone.
Yeah.
They traded for Wiggins, but Wiggins wasn't good when they traded for him.
Yeah.
They drafted all the other players, and they don't even have Wiseman.
Right. Yeah, he's going to be a great player, I think.
And that's the thing is you look at the Celtics, who will probably beat, and I'll get that one right. It'll be the Celtics and the Warriors, like I said. But look at their team. Their core team is all draft picks too.
Right.
Except for your big money free agent was Al Horford.
Yeah, who's really not that great. He's just a solid player.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not over obviously yet, but Boston definitely is I think playing a little bit better. I don't think either of them are playing particularly great, but neither of them are playing bad,
I think the Celtics are playing much better than the Heat. They just play some really bad quarters.
Yeah, no, they're just not consistent in their play. So I can't give them a playing grade overall when they're
right. Well, they should have already won this series.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and
just like the 76ers series, they should have won that one earlier too. And then, but I really would enjoy that series because then it's offense, defense.
Right. Yeah, and Celtics can probably keep up defensively, with them. They're young enough because you got to run around the court a lot to keep up with Golden State.
Well, yeah, look at you got Smart, Brown, Tatum, Williams. They can all run around. Yeah. That's what I like about the Celtics. They have a lot of interchangeable parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the new NBA, a bunch of wing players.
Exactly. Five wing players on the court. Good, and you can get away with it these days because all the other teams are doing it, Yeah. That's why, bring Shaq in again, and he'd dominate the NBA.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Nobody could stop him.
That was hilarious. As I think it was like Embiid was saying something. No, it was it Gobert. Gobert was saying that he could shut Shaq down. And I'm like, dude, you're a twig. Shaq would run you over and dunk on you every single time.
Yeah, no, he's not even comparable to somebody who could stop Shaq. But if you were going to have somebody guard Shaq in the NBA right now, it'd be Gobert,
Yeah, but he couldn't do it. He would.
Right.
I mean, honestly, for me, it would have to be Jokic.
Yeah,
because you need somebody with beef.
Right, but he can't play defense, so
Yeah, but that's not because not anyone's posting up.
yeah, exactly. We don't. It's just a change in the NBA, and that's an interesting thing too. You know, the NBA is. Sometimes it's fun to watch. Sometimes it's hard to watch. You know, because you just want them at one point to play basketball. You know, run some plays and do some things. You know, and like make it look like a normal basketball game instead of a pickup game.
Right, a lot of ISO, a lot of 3-point shooting.
Right, and not many teams play a lot of defense, even though I think Miami plays good defense as well. So I think either team coming out of the East plays pretty good defense.
I don't think Miami has the offensive firepower to even compete with Golden State, though.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to win off turnovers, and you know, if you can outpace any team, you can win. It doesn't matter, you know, how much offense you have. That's like that run and gun mentality. Play good defense and get the ball out in transition. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. It's hard to keep up with that. But it all starts with playing good defense, and if you can't stop Golden State, then yeah, they're going to beat you because they're going to make more threes and score more points for sure. So it's been an interesting playoffs. I can say it's one of my more favorite playoffs in a few years. You know, just because I think helpful the Lakers weren't there. You know, and didn't have to watch LeBron crying all playoffs.
Right. So is that, you know, is the NBA better without LeBron?
I don't know. I know a lot of people love LeBron, and I'll tell you, he's a great player. Like there's no doubt in my mind, he's one of the best players to ever play basketball, and that's great. You know, I just don't like the way he plays. I don't like the attitude he plays with. He does play with heart, but not good attitude, if that makes sense. You know,
right?
He's very passionate.
Well, remember at the beginning of the year, he's like, "Just watch, all our doubters, watch what we're going to do this year."
Right. Yeah, good job.
Yeah. And that's what I feel. And it's like, that's why I like Damian Lillard so much. And he feels like an old school personality. You know, it's like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be competitive. I'm going to try and play as much. I know not this year, but
right.
I'm not going to go and team up with a bunch of guys.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of works against them in a sense that, you know, I mean, it's going to be a rough ride in Portland for a few years.
Well, and that's the thing is he's in Portland, so no one really talks about him. But I can't believe the disrespect. Like they're talking, like people will be like, Kyrie's like a million times better than Damian Lillard.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, what?
No, I mean, he's definitely, you know, one of the top point guards for sure, and he's arguably as good as anybody. You know, you can't really keep him out of that conversation because he's got things he does better than those other guys. You know,
but if you put Dame with Durant or with LeBron, how many championships is he winning?
Yeah, you never know. Like that could be the perfect pair. You know, and that's the thing is there is I don't care how many great players you put on a team, it still comes down to a little bit of their chemistry, right? And how do their games work together? Do they play together?
Well, that was the whole thing. And I am not a Westbrook basher. I like Westbrook, but him and LeBron, that doesn't work.
No, it's not.
Everyone should have known that. It's like LeBron needs shooters.
Yeah.
He doesn't need a guy that needs the ball.
Yeah, and Westbrook cannot shoot.
No.
Like I've seen him throw up some shots and you're just like, really? You know, over the backboard is air ball.
If you looked at it though, he's been the scapegoat of the season, but he actually didn't play as bad as everyone was been making it out.
Well, what it is, it's what you're talking about though. They're not playing with any type of system, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard to win that way when you really don't have a game plan. Like if they game plan, I don't know how you would do this, but you know, to maybe isolate each one of them every other time, you know, or whatever, where they both use their advantages in the right ways. I just don't know that you can game plan for that.
Well, the thing is like I go to this about like Jordan and LeBron. Jordan, like everyone talks, gives LeBron crap because he's the one that actually builds his teams, right? Jordan tried to, and that's why the whole Last Dance is because Krause and them are like, no, I'm building this team. And look at Jordan now. Do we really trust Jordan's eye for talent?
Yeah, I don't know that he's ever even been invested really in being any kind of GM or anything like that. Not like the effort he puts into his golfing or his gambling. Right. If he worked half as hard at being a GM as he did at playing poker and cards and things.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's like the problem is like no one wants to tell LeBron no.
Yeah,
and someone should have said no to Westbrook. We're gonna like keep Caruso, or we're gonna get DeRozan or something like that. Even DeRozan had a good year, but he's not even a 3-point shooter, so I wouldn't even wanted him either.
Yeah, no, he's definitely taken off the dribble for sure too. He does have probably a better mid-range game for sure than Westbrook is just jump shooting. But neither of them are great 3-point shooters.
Right.
Yeah, that was an interesting year in the NBA so far, and I think it's going to be a good finals no matter who comes out of the East. It just, as far as just watching Golden State, if they hit shots, they're almost impossible to beat. So that's what it comes down to.
So are we talking? So in the last, let's say 30 years, I'm trying to even think what year this is Golden State the best dynasty, or would you go Spurs?
That's a really, I was actually thinking about that the other day when I was kind of thinking about how does Curry come into that GOAT conversation that they have to start having if he wins a couple more championships, And so that led me to be like, well, how good was his team? Start thinking about them overall. And you really got to think that they got to be one of the top franchises ever when you look at the results that they've come out with,
right.
Not just like, they had the best record and won the championship, won the most games and, how many championships they've won, but how many playoff games they've won versus how many they've lost. They have a really good win-loss ratio. They had the one playoffs where they didn't lose, right? Until they lose one game the whole playoffs or something like that. So yeah, I think you do got to consider them one of the best franchises, don't you?
Yeah, I would say. I don't know. It's tough. The Spurs had a long time though of being good, but and they didn't have the Warriors are a better team though, I feel like. But
yeah, that's hard to say. The Spurs had some good teams though for a while. Yeah. When you consider Parker, Ginobili, Duncan, that was a good three for a while.
Yeah, or even go Robinson, Duncan, Sean Elliott.
Right, and then you go start with that, and then they even finish with like Kawhi and Duncan and Parker and all those guys. So, but that heart of when they were really great, Ginobili and Parker and Duncan were playing as good as any three, set of three out there.
Big shot Rob.
Yeah, you need him for just that last shot in the finals with his 7 championships. But yeah, that's a good question, and I think I would consider them yes, but make better than the Spurs. I'd really have to dig into that a little bit. That's a tough one off the top of the head. My first thought was to say the Spurs, but then thinking about it, then I started thinking about the Warriors. So yeah, I want to dig into.
What about if we bring in the Kobe Lakers?
Yeah, and I think people forget about the job Kobe did in LA. Even after Shaq left,
right? With Bynum and Gasol,
one of the worst championship teams you'll ever see. And so that's a tough one because I think, when you talk about Kobe and the GOAT debate, and you think about, he had Shaq for a while, but they were really unstoppable when it was him and Shaq. Like they were just dominating people. So that was a great team. But then without Shaq, he still did well and had a great career. So they're up there for sure. I don't know if I can put them any better than the Spurs though,
Right.
as far as like a dynasty. But it does make argument for why Kobe could be called the best player ever. I've seen people put Kobe up there before.
Do you take Showtime Lakers or Kobe Lakers?
Well, I mean, I'm from that. I'm going to take the Showtime Lakers. But if I was a little younger, I might not. But when you actually got to see Showtime Lakers, and you watch the games, especially some of then you get to go back and watch the older stuff. After you've watched a lot of the newer stuff, it's still so much fun. So of course, I got to go Showtime Lakers. But as far as like winning the game, who knows?
Right.
Because it's so hard to determine that athleticism and that difference and what that is. And I know people say, oh, it doesn't matter, they dominate in any era if they went forward. It's like, no, they really wouldn't. There's a few guys that could play good, coming out of the 80s and the 70s and stuff, but not everybody can go in there and play as well as they did in their time now.
Well, the problem is like, and I can't remember who said this, but if you take someone from the 80s and then you gave them the nutrition and everything, how much would they change and how good would they be?
Right. The workout facilities, the different diets,
It's like, think about the 3-point shot now. What would Larry Bird do in that nowadays?
Right.
He would just dominate.
When you talk about guys like Bird and Jordan and Magic, I think they could play, right? But I don't think you could take some average players from that era and they would play, even above average players that would play well, in the newer.
You can imagine like Clyde Drexler nowadays. He would be crushing it.
Yeah.
And no one would stop him. He would just be.
Well, like I said, I think there's plenty of people who could play, but I do think that, going the other way, even the bad players today could play really well. The further back you go.
Well, it's hard because it's all about the rules too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know everyone talks like this, but how would LeBron react playing against the bad boy Pistons?
Well, I mean, he played the Pistons in the playoffs. It wasn't the bad boys, but it was Billups.
Yeah, we're talking the bad boys. We're talking like right. You've seen like Bird going over the middle or Jordan and like, Bird throwing the basketball at Lane Beer's head and stuff.
Well, and punching each other in the face.
Yes.
Yeah. It was definitely a different ball game.
Well, that's why, and I know I'm getting on the soapbox of Jordan here, but that's why he's the GOAT, is he had to change his whole game. He changed his body.
Right.
Too. He's like, I need to do this. And it's nothing against LeBron. It's not his fault. It's just that they basically changed the NBA for him. So he didn't have to change it all. They changed the rules so he didn't get hit or nothing happened to him. So he didn't have to evolve.
Right. And I Jordan's still my pick, of course, right? So, I mean, it's not like I disagree with Jordan. I'm always picking as the GOAT, but there is something when you think about just and you talked about it, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's better workout facilities, maybe it's, but there is that just the physical aspect. Everybody jumps higher, runs faster, and does lifts more than they did in the past, in every sport.
Right.
The world record for running is always going to continue to get broken.
That's all mental, Steve.
Yeah, it's all mental. Yeah, you tell that to Usain Bolt, right? Because the dude's he's 6'5" running 100. His legs get bigger strides.
But then again, also then we talk about they're stronger and better, but LeBron can't play a full 82 games.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan did it like 8 times.
Right. Yeah, and you just wonder if that's more of a LeBron thing, though.
But that's now thing. That's
right.
Basketball. How many players actually play 82 games now?
No, and a lot of times, sometimes they just sit out.
Yeah.
Just needed a rest game,
And that's one of the thing is, in there like talking about LeBron's longevity and stuff, and maybe that's why Jordan burned out. But you know what? During his time, Jordan played every game.
Right. Well, and that's a legitimate, like LeBron's in his 19th year. That's legitimate. Maybe it is taking it easier and not playing every game, and that may extend his career.
Well, he didn't have to go to college. He didn't play any college ball either.
Right. Yeah, that helped too. He started when he was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think there is regardless of everything else, there's just that advancement in athleticism that you see it year over year or decade over decade in everything.
Yeah, you got to admit though, LeBron is just a freak though. Like even in high school, he looked like he was like 25.
But if you think about that right now, which really sucks to think about, that was 20 years ago. When LeBron came out, we were like LeBron, and watching him play, and he was a freak athlete, even
they had his high school games on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just remember seeing him in like the dunk contest coming out of high school for like the McDonald's All-American stuff, and it's just like it was just nuts to watch him. Like you haven't seen anything like him,
Right.
He was definitely like one of a kind, especially back then. More and more are like him now. Like you're seeing more of that. But back 20 years ago, there wasn't anything like LeBron. Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. No, we went a few minutes over, but that was good. Good stuff. Any final thoughts on what we talked about?
Well, I mean, the big thing is just cherish and hug and give your kids loves and hugs and stuff, because I don't know what kind of world we're living in now. So it's kind of like you just.
Yep. I mean, that's a tough one. And I've seen a lot of people saying that and posting that, and I guess my final thoughts on that would be like, this should be something that we should be coming together on, not being separated and being pulled apart. I don't care what your beliefs are, what party you vote for, if they support gun control or not, or if they support don't, like that. This should be something bringing us together, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of what you believe or who you support. And if you're going to use this as something to enhance your campaign, like then you're the one that deserves to be shot. Like that. I mean, we should really come together as a group, and maybe it's time for people to say, you know what, stop listening to the politicians, stop listening to the people running your party, and your political affiliation, and really come together on that.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope people do. All right. Well, good stuff. We'll reconvene next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get the playlist. This one will be added in there. If you aren't on YouTube or you don't want to watch on YouTube, you can check Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor. All three of those are accessible for podcast. And so again, appreciate everybody that's watching and listening. And thanks, Derek. We'll see you next time.